All right, welcome back to another episode of Young Justice series review. And this time we're doing episodes 19 and 20. And this time we're doing episode 19, Elder Wisdom. I'm just gonna, right off the bat, this is one of those episodes that kind of just like moves the plot along. So right away, 7 out of 10 is what I'm gonna give it. Maybe even a 6.9. And I'll explain a little bit about what's going on, right? So the basic premise of this episode is that it seems to be all a setup for certain things. Lex Luthor tries to set up the outsiders to make them look bad, but their popularity increases. He brings in Flash from the Justice League to kind of help out this little skirmish that's going on. We got Vandal Savage's daughter and a bunch of the other chicks that are kind of like have these things around their necks. I also noticed I haven't seen Superboy in a while, but I digress. They try to stage this thing to try to attack people. Outsiders are there. I think what he was trying to do was to get them exposed into the light, no pun intended, so that this way they can see the outsiders are here illegally. And I brought in the Justice League so they could be here legally by permission, by request. But that kind of flops. Even that part at the end with G. Gordon Godfrey, he calls him out on. He's like, "Bro, you got to be careful because it's popping like that, and you think what you're doing is right." But at the end, Luther's like, "Ah, okay. So I shouldn't expose them. I should embrace them." And then we'll wind up seeing what happens in the coming future with his idea. Another basic premise of this episode is because they've been quote unquote exposed, now the parents of the outsiders are like, "Hey, listen, we need to stop. You guys need to relax. You're too out in the light. You're too exposed. People know you." And the outsiders are basically like, "Yeah, dude, that's the whole point." And really, if you think about it, last couple of episodes, when they established the outsiders, they said we know we need to be the team that's outside. We need to be the team, no, because they're called the outsiders, but we need to be an offshoot of this, and people need to see us in the open. You know. So we get a little bit of that going on. Eventually, it kind of clears itself up, and at the end, it kind of comes full circle. That's the one. That's the good thing about this episode is that even though it's slightly boring in some senses, it's not really that boring because it does move the plot along and eventually kind of comes full circle and wraps up in a nice little bow. But we get those assassin things in the beginning. That's a pretty dope episode. That part of the episode, rather. And more gore because Violet gets her throat slashed and then she heals and takes time. And Wonder Woman's like, no, pardon me, Miss Martian, who I feel like I haven't seen for a while, she's like, "Listen, you got to be careful. You're benched because you're doing some out of pocket stuff, you know?" And that makes sense because Violet, she's under duress. She's going through a lot because she's being lied to by that scientist lady, that freak who's taking hairs out of combs and analyzing it. She's lying to her, telling that she's dying. Plus, she that lesbian chick is trying to kiss up on her and touch her boobies and stuff like that and getting her drunk, which is a clear party foul. But then also she's dealing with the whole I was the one technically that led to the assassins to come in and kill Brion's parents and stuff like that because she was dead in him for a while. She was telling him she wasn't answering his messages and he's trying to hit her up, you know? And then eventually it kind of comes to the end where we find out that Batman had set up that whole warehouse thing with Dr. Ivo and the monkeys and stuff like that so the outsiders could go in, fight, you get a little bit of action, all staged so that this way, I guess so the outsiders could kind of be, get their popularity back or gain more popularity because they wind up gaining a lot more popularity because they're trending, And this is a social media aspect. I notice as this season is kind of wrapping up a little bit and coming towards the latter half of the season, there's a heavy social media presence, which makes sense because if this came out in the later part of the 2010s, social media is not only prevalent, but it has a very strong part of society, you know? And it's more established. It's had multiple years to kind of establish itself with multiple social media platforms. So the show is just taking that aspect of things. And now we have Lex Luthor saying he's going to embrace this. So we'll see what's going on. And we have the outsiders kind of coming to terms with their parents and them kind of agreeing to be on board, parents, legal guardians, what have you. So decent episode, cute, and we get Static Shock, we get Blue Beetle, even though he doesn't really talk, but some funny little bits of things here and there. So overall, I would give this episode a 7 out of 10. All right, stay tuned. Coming up, episode 20. After that, then it's just 6 more episodes of the season, and after this would probably be 3 more episodes after this. So enjoy episode 20 coming up next. All right, and back with episode 20, Quiet Conversations. And pretty much this episode I noticed is about making amends in some sort of way. You're trying to fix something that has happened. So in this case with Vic, trying to fix what's going on because some shit's going on with that father box stuff. Violet with Gabrielle's mom and I guess cousin or whatever. You get also Harper and Miss Martian kind of talking to one another and them finally admitting that she is getting abused at home and her brother is also getting abused at home. And we find out the whole kind of spiel with that. So right off the bat, gonna give this one a 7.5 out of 10. A little bit better than the last episode, in my opinion. And a lot of cool things seem to happen. So that lady from New Genesis comes in because we find out Vic is reacting negatively to the father box, and what's going on is now father box is pretty much kind of taking over and kind of shutting the human Vic Stone down, and Vic Stone's still upset at his dad comes in to help. That science lady also gets a phone call, so I don't think they tell us what happens in that phone call, just an FYI for foreshadowing for something. And she tells them, listen, you got to find this weird looking dude named Metron who kind of looks like something out of Tron, and you gotta get his chair. You gotta put Vic in the chair. So eventually they wind up doing that. So everything kind of works well with there. Violet goes back to her mom. They don't know that Gabrielle is no longer technically around, and it's just the vessel of what Gabrielle was with the mother box that has given new life. Harper has a sit-down conversation. She's very resistant because truthfully she is getting abused. And at the end of this episode, we find out that they give a little phone number for the hotline. So this case, in case someone's getting abused. So it's touching on topics. It's touching on sensitive topics of healing, of coming to terms with things. And even towards the end of this episode too, we get a little bit of Tara saying, I have nothing to report because everything's been going good. So I think she's starting to kind of turn a little bit, which, I mean, for Deathstroke, this is probably going to be an issue because as soon as he hears her say, "Oh, there's nothing to report because everything's been good," that's when it's bad for him. You know what I'm saying? What's cool is we get Superboy, which is funny because in episode 19, I'm like, I haven't seen Superboy in a while. Superboy, Black Lightning, and Forager try to go find Metron. He's kind of doing his own little thing. He's a weird looking dude. They run into Superman as well at one point. And he's like, hey, could you be, Superboy's like, hey, could you be the best man at my wedding as they're fighting and stuff like that against parademons? And he's like, yeah, sure, we'll do that. So that's kind of a little fun. We get the conversation with Gabrielle's vessel, and her mom and cousin. And basically she's explaining what's going on and kind of coming to terms with that. So overall, a pretty decent episode, a little bit better. We also get that fish girl who her metagene's been activated and now she can only breathe underwater. So Aqualad's like, listen, come through, hang out with my parents, you'll live there, get used to Atlantis, Poseidonus, and become a resident there. So this way you could be around like-minded, able-bodied individuals. You know what I'm saying? So we get a little bit of that as well. And now she's kind of looking to adjust to her new sort of digs, the new crib, if you will. I don't know if anybody knew that Aqualad's dad is a human and his mom is an underwater mommy. But he got himself a little ting, so that's nice. And Aqualad basically tells her, listen, live here. You can breathe underwater. We can't bring you up to the earth because you won't survive if that happens. So overall, we kind of get fun-loving, coming to terms, healing people in this episode, which I think is pretty solid. The Metron stuff was pretty cool because it kind of adds a bit more depth, because now, at the end, Black Lightning's like, hey, so what's up with that? Is Granny Goodness also Granny Gretchen? And Metron goes, no, she's not, but yes, she is. Like, what? So that kind of leads to something. And let's see how that pushes the rest of this season than what winds up happening in season 4. So overall, 7.5 out of 10. Solid episode. Pretty fun overall. Nothing too crazy, but one of those episodes where it's like, okay, tie up any sort of loose things because we got some other things in the woodwork that need to be shown, given that we have 6 more episodes in the season. All right, that was episodes 19 and 20 of season 3 of Young Justice Review. Stay tuned. Coming up, episodes 21 and 22. Bye, bitch.